Hi folks, I'm Robert Marchetti. Welcome to the Raw Hospitality Show, where I interview hospitality industry icons and boots-on-the-ground hospo peeps. That's an Australian term. Those workers and veterans that have something valuable to say. If you work in hospitality, we're going through some really tough times right now, but I hope this show will inspire, motivate, and entertain you until we come out the other end. If you have someone you want me to interview, just DM me on Instagram at Raw Hospitality Show. Now on with today's episode.
It'd be brutal because like sometimes I'd be opening a bar, then closing a bar, and then like as it's like heavy hours, I would see a text just in the corner of the phone. It's like someone from LA is like, "Hey, can you get this track to us in 6 hours?" And I'm like, my shift ends in 2.
Yeah.
And then I have to run to the studio after working 15 brutal hours.
Yeah.
And then try to like crank out something and get it to them before they wake up.
All right, folks, we've got a pretty awesome guest, Ginn Choe, a.k.a. Ginn Doll, Ginndoll. Just asked her to send me a writer on herself. I said, tell me about how you can describe yourself in a few words. Coffee, water, whiskey or tequila on the rocks, temperature at 73 degrees, 6 strippers. That's what she sent me. I actually found an old self-description of her on social media. Good girl, bad doll, sound bay, earworm, not sure what that means, queen, liquid gold drip, Motor City Never Dies, a Saint of New York. That sounds pretty exciting. Ginn Choe is an enigma wrapped in hustle paper that never gives up to fulfill her passions. A Michigan girl with Korean heritage, an academic family, and easily the hardest working woman I know. Ginn is a music composer, jingle writer, singer, and a damn fine genie in a bottle bar goddess who has, to me, bigger collones than most MMA fighters. For anyone considering either of these industries, Ginn Choe has to be listened to for this interview. For her super humble approach, yet her hardcore mentality to getting what she wants and owning her unique style. I've actually not met many people like this with such tenacity and resilience. Here is the AKA Ginn Doll. All right, we're here today with my dear friend Ginn Choe. I did a little introduction on your background. Mm-hmm. You're a bit of a hospitality goddess, as I know, and a music person. And we've been good friends for a long time. I haven't met too many people like Australians that can drink as much as an Australian and still wake up the next day and go and perform and do whatever you need to do. So welcome you to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. This is great.
So you're a Michigan girl, New York for how many years?
This is my 11th, maybe 11 and a half as of this winter.
Right. Yeah. And so you came over here like 11 years ago, and I remember you telling me this great story about you're an academic, essentially studying medicine, right? You come from an academic family. As if I remember correctly, your father's an engineer, and your mother's an academic, and your sister, and you went, I don't want to be a doctor. I don't want to be in medicine, and you decided to pack up and come to New York, right?
Yeah. My parents are still mad about that. But, honestly, I've never been happier. I have zero regrets about that. I just realized, I think, I just wanted to do something completely different. And it's kind of difficult when you have no skill sets other than medicine, so I had to really, cultivate another passion, another industry. And it became 2 industries, two very male-dominated industries at that, being hospitality and the music industry. So
I remember that little story you told me about when you had your CV. I was writing in my notes, and you put a resume together. You rolled into New York. You've never worked in a bar before, so I said in the intro you've got collones bigger than an MMA fighter. What made you think you could just walk into a bar and get a job without any experience?
I didn't. It's funny. If you looked at the resume that I was handing out 10-ish years ago, I think I was maybe more like 9 at this point. Sorry, 9 years ago. And it's just medical, worked as a lab tech, all these worked at a veterinary hospital, all those different qualifications that bar after bar, I think it was 50 some odd number of bars, I was walking door to door, dropping it off and just getting, no after no. And I was like, I'm just going to keep going until.
So everybody rejected you?
Chance. Yeah, every single one except for Fat Buddha Bar. And bless Cliff Choe. He's one of the best people I've ever worked under. He is the owner of Fat Buddha Bar. I walked in there and I got really lucky because, one of the girls, she was leaving. She was going to school to MIT or something like that, I want to say. And I handed it to her and she goes, "It's your lucky day. I'm leaving. It's my last week here." I was like, "Really?"
That's sweet.
I was like, "Cool." And then he actually contacted me and he goes, "Hey, what do you do outside of, this resume, which has nothing to do with bartending?" And I was like,
well, I don't know. Treating animals, it's pretty much the same working in a restaurant.
Right. Well, I was like, well, I do music, and he goes, oh, he's also like a label head for drum and bass, and I didn't know that time, and he's also Korean American. I just got really lucky that we all had very similar common backgrounds, I guess. And I go, listen, Cliff, if I will work for free for the first 2 weeks if you just give me a chance. I'm smart. I'll it's going to be a learning curve for me, but I will.
Sure.
I'm smart. I'll pick up really fast. Like, please give me a chance.
But who says that? I mean, like, so few people. I'm older than you, and we have those folk stories of, oh, we offered to work for free, but nobody does that anymore. And obviously, they took you up on it.
Yeah. Well, they still paid me for my training shifts,
right.
which is great. Like, it was like 3 or 4 training shifts, and at first they were like, I don't know if this girl's going to make it.
Let's give her some money so she can eat for the next week while she starves to death in New York.
Yeah, and like that venue is still to this day like an amazing venue where all the like famous 90s rappers like Stax Selecta, all these like, you know, these radio DJs, they all hang out there and they all do their thing. And like, you know, we had like very, very prolific people with like so many accolades like show up there, and you know, a lot of people who have also passed away in the hip hop community. They do great things like still to this day.
Do you remember any of the people that came in?
Yeah,
any well-known names?
There's a lot. I mean, there was like the Rizzo once came in. We were supposed to have a couple of people. Oh gosh, see, it's a long time ago. Stax Selecta is obviously there all the time. Tristan Eaton is another Detroit, very, very well-known graffiti artist. He does great murals, and you see it all over New York. He's hanging out there, and it's just like a favorite haunt. I see. Met TC is on before he passed away.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
wow.
He was there. A lot of just like a lot of
real legends.
Yeah, real legends are there all the time. Yeah.
So that's so tell me about, you know, so you're in this bar, you're working not for free for 2 weeks, but you did offer it. They finally give you a job.
Yeah.
At what point did you think you were nuts and you're in New York and you're trying to be, you know, in the hospitality industry, and then where that merged to music? So, you know, after that second week, they decided to give you a job. What happened then? You just thought, shit, I actually better be good at this?
Yeah, I just was like, I'm just going to just do whatever they say. I don't know. Yeah. And at first it's just like, it's hard to like get it, and I get it. But yeah, I probably similar to a lot of creatives in New York City, started off in the hospitality industry because it was flexible.
Yep.
And I was doing music. I just got my feet wet at that time, and I saw like a couple big checks from like Sony. I was like a ghostwriter for the labels for a long time.
Wait, back up. You jumped ahead. Where did we get the music bit in there?
The music.
When you got here, you didn't have anything. You were a vet,
I didn't.
basically.
I was a vet. Yeah, and then I eventually got into music. That's a whole nother long story. But then I ended up quitting, and then I went into hospitality because that was what would pay my bills in between the bills that I would have dry spells for. And you know, at first I didn't really. It was out of necessity rather than, you know, a passion. And then I fell in love with it because.
So how did you So we're in the bar, right? We're going to slow down for everybody who doesn't know you too much. You're clearly great in the bar, and you know, like we're all functioning alcoholics. That's where we get in the hospitality industry, but you not so much. Now, when did the music part start? Did it start before the bar job?
Yeah, I think I was looking at the time I was working at this stem cell research lab up in Washington Heights for Columbia University, and it was like a Nobel-winning laboratory for ALS research. And I remember just being really miserable, and I'm like, before I quit my day job, I really need to cultivate like what I really want to do. And I remember I was reading this study how they put people in MRI machines and were reading dopamine levels. And they're playing different genres of music. It was like jazz and rock and, you know, hip hop, and then there was like pop, which is technically an all-encompassing multi-genre. Sure. And then the dopamine levels were maxed out on pop, and I was like, and then, you know, the results of the study was like, oh, this is why it's a multi-billion-dollar industry, and like it comes right before the repetitive hook.
Sure.
And people, whether they hated or loved the song in that MRI machine, got off on the song, and I was like, I need to be doing that.
So kind of like when they put Achy Breaky Heart on, and I fucking hated that song.
Yeah.
And why was I singing it because 6 months later?
You can predict it, and your dopamine levels get off on it, and you're addicted to it.
So there's apart from brainwashing you to like something, there's also a way. Yeah. The music is a form of therapy for certain types of music, right?
Or
like
torture.
I know, sorry,
or torture,
depending who's looking at the playlist, right? We know plenty of times like that. Yeah. But like, you know, bad country. Right. But like, you know, as a form of therapy, I know there's music out there scientifically proven to decrease depression, you know, decrease anxiety and so forth. What did you learn about that to manipulate how you wanted people to feel in an environment? Because that's what hospitality is, like theatre, right? So you left medical school on the basis of what?
I was doing medical while doing music because I was fascinated by the neurology of that.
Right.
Studied a lot of it, then went into it. And then I made like my first big break writing for Rihanna's team back in 2011.
Wow.
And that was like,
How did you get that? Did you just stalk her place outside
well,
and just yell at her and throw?
Oh my God. That's another long story. No. I was writing for like just like random clients for smaller labels and
Yep.
a lot of like people who wanted to go into Eurovision. So like really bad Europop. It's really hard to describe that. It was very electronic. And then the engineers at these studios were like, "You're actually really good working with this Italian artist who doesn't even speak English. Like you should write for some bigger clientele. Why didn't you show up tomorrow at this time? I'm not gonna tell you who it is."
Wow.
So it was really just a
walk
recording
me. So
engineers.
you were just like, okay,
like,
and then you rolled in and
Yeah.
and then they told you who the client was and what happened then.
You never meet the client. They don't really tell you until you really show up. It's just a songwriting room. It's a camp of 8 people that they just kind of lock you in a room for about 2 weeks and just go, whoosh, right, slaves. Whoosh.
It's kind
I'm
of
just
like
kidding.
the music Guantanamo Bay, basically.
Yeah.
They waterboard you till you give them what they want.
Yeah, with songwriters, a bunch of like management of the stuff like that.
And
So
when
that
did you
was
find out
amazing.
it was Rihanna?
Like when I showed up, I was like, wait, whoa, that's what who we're
Did you have
submitting to.
a what the fuck moment?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, and I didn't know what I was doing. Like, I have no knowledge of intellectual property rights or anything.
Right.
So that's also part of the reason why I got screwed over because I didn't sign off on the splits. So you got to check in the beginning. It was a good learning experience, and met a lot of people through that. That was amazing.
And now it's evolved into, I'm jumping ahead a few bits and pieces with the music, but we're going to get to some stuff later. But now it's involved into your own recording studio.
It has.
And you hustle between that and working in bars as
God.
well, and doing a great job in bars and being responsible for my very small dry liver. But so like now we're in bars, we're now winding forward 11 years, okay? And so you're well known around the traps in the bar world, and you know a lot of music people, and often we go to your bar and sit outside and you look after us. What's changed from 11 years ago? Let's talk pre-COVID, because hopefully when this show airs, the COVID is over, the plague as they call it. But pre-COVID, what had changed in 11 years for bars for you?
Oh man. Just for me?
Yeah.
I mean, me in the industry, like,
Yeah.
okay. I would say I worked at Fat Buddha Bar for like 5 years, working at like a lot of club kind of spaces.
Mm-hmm.
And then I wanted something different. I think, like after a couple of years, I'm just like, now what? And I loved it. I really loved it, especially like being part of that nightlife scene with musicians also being loved.
Sure.
Really helped me fall in love with that and learning how to talk to people and when not to, rather. And I want to do mixology, so I just shifted gears and then just learning how different. I'm not quite sure what your question is asking, but
what's changed for you? Because we're getting to your science side.
Right.
Because I'm gonna ask you a little question later on about your
Gotcha.
weird little lab experiments that you have all the time. I'm curious from the day you've gone to 11 years ago when you're in a bar.
Right.
Now, then the Me Too movement wiped through New York, which needed to happen, right? We needed to clean out of that. Right. Was that something that you ever had to worry about in the bar scene? I mean, sure, as a beautiful bar person working behind the bar, boy or girl, there's always going to be some drunk idiots trying to hit on you. But what had changed in the industry up until now, pre-COVID? Does it feel better now running bars? Is it a lot more strict? Are people a lot more careful, or is it still just loose?
See, I don't want to speak for or on the behalf of other women, right? So Me Too movement and all that stuff. I think I was very lucky to not have to ever face some weird harassment issues and stuff like that.
Sure.
Luckily, I've been, especially my 2 bars I currently work at, which is Bar Belly, which is like a craft cocktail bar, mixology for it.
Super fun.
Yeah, that place is fantastic. And, that's what I really wanted to get into is like get all science nerdy about it. And I accidentally then just realized, wow, it's just the same thing as a science laboratory setting, just in food science. And then the other spot is Tavern 29, which is like multiple floors and it's just very like beer forward. I want to learn about beers, and that's actually what I want to do. That's a woman-run team. Like there's no harassment, and they're like against that. I've been very lucky to work in environments where they just really help cultivate me as somebody trying to learn and tap more and deeper into mixology.
So you're always inquisitive about what you're doing.
Yeah, I just want to know more, and it's like more questioning.
So we come up to now pandemic, right, which is now, when this comes out, we're recording in 6 months in, and I've got a big bar, you're running a bar, my bar can't open through this period, your Bar Belly has some outside seats. What's changed now? Because now the environment, the hustle inside, the passion, the creativity is different, and now everybody's serving cocktails out on the street. Yeah. What does it feel like?
Well, so before COVID, I really wanted it evolved into like doing mixology and like trying to be more sustainably focused. I was trying to like really drive. We're like oyster bar as well, where it's we promote $1 billion oyster project. We're like all about that and like trying to just talk about sustainability. Also, that just kind of went out the window when we're using more to-go cups and plasticware, which it just breaks my heart. So we're using compostable everything now, which is great.
Yeah.
It's definitely outdoor dining. It's less like the intimate setting that you had, which was like the jazz trio playing, and there's like little couples at little dimly lit candles inside. It's outside, so it's just a completely different vibe. So it's a little bit more fun, carefree. I would say more casual.
Sure.
So, whereas before it was kind of like more intimate date, and then turns into like a crazy club night where it's just packed out, and then we have to collapse tables to have a standing room, and just it's like shoulder to shoulder. And
it's like, I think we talked about it last night. It's like really polarizing now for those places that are institutional and have always had an atmospheric moment inside, not through necessarily trying, but just because they're 100 years old, and then all of a sudden they're now just serving really simple, basic drinks outside, and the atmosphere's gone. What are your predictions of when everything comes back, and if it comes back in the next 6 months? Do you think people are going to use their experience in that place, good or bad, indifferent, to go back to that place? Do you think the bar culture is going to change, or are we all just going to do what we do after every kind of crisis in the world, is everybody just wants to go out and get drunk?
That's a really good question. I mean, there's definitely been regulars of the bar, patrons-wise. I wouldn't say there's two types of regulars. There's the bar, people who are staunch believers of the bar, and they come back and they go, this is a very different vibe from what it was when it was indoors, but I still like it. Still trying to be attentive and things like that is very important. And then there's like my regulars who will ride or die and just go to any venue I'm at no matter what. So they're just happy I'm there, whatever. But yeah, they have definitely said like it is completely different. So a lot of these venues who can't evolve, so to speak, and be able to do outdoor dining in order to like really get maybe comparable amount of sales per week, I guess it would be very tricky and hard. And that ambiance of being able to curate like the music down to like the service and everything is incredibly important.
It's going to be so long between we can put a crowded bunch of people in a room together and feel safe, right? And what's really interesting is the drinking culture here is so different. For example, in Australia, my business partner had a ton of bars, and people would basically, the average person would drink 4 or 5 drinks before they would knock out. And then I've noticed in New York, the culture of drinking is a little bit more mannered. It's a little bit more thoughtful. Everybody takes their time. Cocktails are huge. It's very seldom, except for me, I guess, people having just whiskey. But I've noticed the drinking. Have you found that between the places you live, like Michigan and New York? Like Michigan seems like kind of like where I came from, which is Dandenong in Melbourne, which is kind of like a little lefty. We can, it's a little rough, but we have a passion for it. We can drink anybody under the table. And then you get to New York and everybody's a bit more bespoke. Do you feel like that?
It depends, because I used to travel all around the country, like being part of his photography team. That's a long story. It was a part-time gig. But anyway, different cities would have definitely different like types of drinkers, and New York was definitely cocktail forward, I would say. And if you go to like a smaller city or smaller town, like you would have that like one really special cocktail bar, if at all.
Sure.
But a lot of these places that are like super like out there in the Midwest, there's not really a cocktail bar.
Who are
like,
the biggest drunks? Who are the biggest drunks in America? Which districts?
Firemen. Sorry.
Firemen.
I love that.
Yeah, you love them because they're always hanging outside the bar because it's near a fire station, and of course they love you because you look after them. They've never got an empty glass. Okay, so the biggest drunks are firemen, thank God, because, I can understand that. They've got a stressful job. I mean, I was a chef at Australia, and when you're in the kitchen surrounded by flames and fire and getting burnt, but they take way more risks with their lives. What about towns? Like, who are the biggest drinkers in this country?
Oh, other than like people who tailgate football, that's the one thing I can imagine out in the Midwest. People who are like super about, especially if they're kids in college. Biggest drinkers, it's hard to say.
I'm thinking North Carolina, West Virginia.
Naming a state is kind of like a difficult thing. I mean, you can't really say. I would definitely say New Yorkers can drink more than Californians because we have that 4 a.m. thing, which we now no longer have.
Yep.
Man, I think I read something. It was like we're at a loss of a $1.2 billion industry for nightlife being impacted like this.
It's pretty crazy, right?
$1.2 billion. And, we make sales probably as comparable to the hours that are allotted at Barbelly, for example, we close at 11, so it's just crazy busy. If we could have kept going from 11 till 4 a.m. like we used to, we probably could have made the same amount of sales just doing outdoor dining, because actually we had the same amount of tables.
It's kind of funny because we talk about, people that live above bars, and the bar was there first, and then they move in, and then they bust the bar's balls for being loud and noisy. And I can understand in a city that's loud and noisy, but at some point, if you go and move above a bar that's got a 4 a.m. license, it's pretty hard to think that that's going to be quiet, right?
Yeah.
So like I'm looking at, New York as a whole. Do you think out of this it's going to take some years to get to the recovery to come back to the industry?
It's like asking me what the weather's going to be like. I don't know. I think you never know.
Right now it's cold just at the end of summer.
Yeah,
so.
But what if they come up with a vaccine and everyone gets vaccinated and, by springtime, like, we're back to everything's full force again. Like, it might take a couple of months at the earliest is what I'm thinking at this point. What is it? It's September right now.
Yep.
I have friends in the CDC and the medical industry. Is like, there's definitely going to be another spike in New York,
Sure.
especially because it's going to be winter soon, and the virus is going to be able to transmit through the air a little bit.
It's going to be a little hard to sit in shorts outside Barbelly in the middle of winter.
Yeah, we should probably get space heaters pretty soon.
Space heaters. So what's really interesting, we're going to talk about music.
Yeah.
You've been working your arse off
through
this entire period in that industry. That industry didn't go to sleep. Like acting did. There's a lot of actors that can't go on set. You can see that. I've noticed a lot of really well-known actors have started to become like online mixologists. I won't mention any names in case they dirty email me, but I'm like, no, you should probably, it's like how to make a martini. And I'm like, no, you should probably just stick to acting, but they're all at home. They're bored out of their brains. But in the music industry, everybody's making music, right?
Yes. It's the craziest thing. So we have naturally adapted to be secluded and remote in terms of our work, just being, a lot of people have seen a lot of commercial studios closing before COVID even hit,
right?
Because it's too expensive and technology was getting better and easier to just make your own music in your bedroom. So everyone was just moving their studios and just building a home studio for the longest time and working remotely. Like, I think even before COVID, more than half my clients and people and producers I've worked with are from not the state.
Really?
We just email each other. Yeah, everything.
Right.
Remote is GOAT is what
Remote is GOAT
is what my producer said. And then COVID hit, and then it's just like, we've never been busier than ever.
Yeah.
The music industry has been so busy. The only people who are hurting are people who don't produce music. Like in terms of like making records and jingles is what I've been doing a lot of lately.
Sure.
Are the artists who are more acoustic and like have to work in live venue kind of type deals. Tours are canceled. That's where a lot of people are hurting for sure.
Sure.
Live acts, live shows. But for me, I've just been like out of my mind and just like contacting producers and just making jingles for a lot of people, especially after COVID when everyone's been just hold up and they want to do something cool, creative.
Crazy.
So music's been amazing. And what else are you going to do other than listening to music? And
I've noticed that at cities had a lot of people recording their videos.
Mm-hmm.
I saw one the other day. It was a semi-trailer truck. We call it a semi-trailer in Australia. It was a truck with a guy on top of it, a Spanish musician. I can't remember his name. It's my brain freeze. Through Williamsburg. And then I saw somebody at the tower related, the tower, viewing tower on that related building down in Hudson Yards.
Yeah.
They had 3 helicopters, and I saw a friend of mine who's a choreographer with helicopters, and they had 3 helicopters filming this guy singing on there. And I'm wondering if everybody's taking the opportunity of the city being dead and just thinking to themselves, well, let's just make a music video.
Yeah. I would say like if you are an artist, producing content would probably be where there was like a big bump if there was stocks in that. It'd be on the up. People who are videographers who want to produce content, it's been harder to shoot with like a crew because COVID would shut that down as a filmographer. And like whereas music, we can just do everything remotely. We can just grab a
Which
friend.
you kind of always did. You always were in the dark. You guys were always smoking a lot of dope in recording studios. Every time I walk in any recording studio in the city, it smells like a marijuana farm, basically. And that's, other than having some food in-house, you just keep them locked away for 3 or 4 weeks till they give you what you want.
Yeah.
So right now, I'm going to bring up this jingle you wrote me because I got you at a very vulnerable moment through COVID where you were like, I got a few days off. And I'm like, hey, I don't know if I was high because when I was giving it to you, I asked you to write the song for this show, right?
Right.
And you were like, yep, no worries. And I'm like, do I need to give? And you go, just send me a couple of, and I think I sent you 2 songs.
No, just one reference.
Oh, one.
Not even 2.
Which was Paolo Conti,
Yeah.
Fantastic singer. He's dead now, but he was a great singer. And I was like, I kind of want it like this, but not, but, institutional. I don't want it to be too cool, and I don't want it to be too old-fashioned. And you somehow worked out that you knew what I wanted, right?
Oh, that's a great song. You know what it was, too? It's all in Italian. I didn't understand Italian. I tried to translate it, and then what I did is I was like, I'm going away now for a week to like a music retreat to make a ton of stuff for other clients as well as yourself. And I was like, I'm going to basically it's like a cow field. One of my producers, he's like one of my best friends, has like tons of accolades.
What's his name?
Woodrow Skilson, aka Architect.
Architect.
Yeah, he has like maybe 3 or 4 platinum records and a gold. He was worked with Janae Aiko as well as like Kid Cudi and like Machine Gun Kelly, all these people. Anyway, he lives out in the fields in like South Jersey. I asked you what else. I was like, do you want like vocals on it? Because it's this guy singing. I was like, do you want female, male? You're like, I don't know, both. So I was like, well, screw it. I'll just do like both. So I wrote the lyrics. I was like, sang it the first time, and then I made him sing it. He's never done something like this before.
Well, wait, because you spoiled the surprise. I was going to say that you sent it to me, and I was like, holy shit, I really love this. And I'm like, that dude sounds amazing. I don't know who she is, but I want to marry that voice. And then I sent it back to you, and you were like, do you really like it? Because then you started to have second thoughts because you realized you wrote something pretty fucking incredible. And you were like, well, if you don't like it, I can keep. I remember you saying to me, you go, like, if you don't like it, we're really fine to keep it because we really like it, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, hey, slow down here.
Yeah. I remember he was like bouncing around to the walking bass line. We've never made a song like this. So we didn't think we had it in us to make something that's like a very bossa nova jazzy kind of thing where he's singing like Tony Bennett, which took like an hour for me to vocal coach. I'm like, you are Tony Bennett. Become Tony Bennett. No, talk it, don't
Did you make him wear a suit and walk around the house with a drink?
I was like, we might have to start dressing like. I was just trying to get him in character, and then he finally got it. I was like, perfect. And I had him come in first, and then I come in. But we were just like, if he doesn't want the song, I'm gonna keep it.
Yeah. But you did tell me that because you were like trying to. You actually didn't want to give it to me. You were You were trying to do some like Jedi mind trick shit and say you really don't really like it. And I'm like, actually, shut the fuck up. I need it.
It was so good. We played for other like producers. Like we have this one Sony TV producer. His name's Joe Daniel. He'll just like randomly FaceTime us at like 4 or 5 in the morning. And we're like, hey, listen to this. We put it on, and he goes, you guys made that?
It's really impressive. We're going to put it on our page because I was saying to Mark, our producer, that we should have it on the page for everybody to listen to because I actually didn't tell anybody what it was for. I sent it when you sent me the full draft of it, and I didn't. And then you finally told me it was you singing and Woodrow, which was incredible. I sent it out to a whole bunch of friends and friends that are usually very raw, sometimes too raw, with me and just go, that's shit or that's horrible or whatever. Right. And I sent it out to a bunch of friends and I didn't say it was for the show. I just said, what do you think of this? And they said, geez, that sounds fantastic. That's that's great. And, it's got that real institutional, one of my friends, Mark, he was just finishing up with Virgin, 20 years branding guy, right? And he was actually on the Impossible Network, our producer show. And he is if I give him the wrong wording, he'll just give me a 3-page review of that because he understands brands. And he was just like, that's genius. And I said, and everybody loved it. And then we were like, we've got to have this song.
Did you tell them a couple of R&B trap ratchet hip hop artists and producers made
I just said a couple of hillbillies were out in a farm in Jersey just like writing this song and smoking crack and they'll be fine. But no, it was really fantastic. So I was going to ask you, which we've been talking about. So you loved it so much, then I said, okay, well, I've got to get this from you and buy it. And you're like, okay, then.
Yeah, well, and everyone was mad I was selling it. They go, why aren't you keeping this? What's wrong with you? This is going to go into your net. What? They're like, you have to keep this. I was like, I can't. I already made it. It's going to be Robert's. He can use it for the rest of his life indefinitely.
But then you rang me back and you were like, hey, I know your bar's closed because we've got Pepe Cellar and it's kind of like very old world and Jason designed the stage. And you rang me back and you said, we want to shoot a video to this. Are you okay with that?
So I played this to so many people and then I showed it to my boss at Barbelly, Federico. Yeah. He's like the best. Anyway, I was like, wouldn't it be funny if like I shot a music video to this? He goes, if you do, I want to be playing the saxophone. And I was like, done. We're going to make this happen, right? Because nothing would be greater than just to have my boss playing the saxophone and in the background, Careless Whispers kind of playing. And he just uses that as a meme to troll like his enemies. And I'm like, that would be amazing. I was like, I got to make this happen somehow. And so I sent it over to Santosh, who's like, he's like my baby brother. And in the cocktail world, he's a big videographer now. Doing
Bar TV, doing a bar documentary right now.
Was it Buddha Bar TV?
Buddha Bar TV.
Mm-hmm. It's on Instagram. Yeah, check it out. great work. He's a golden child in terms of visuals. He just sees it. I was like, what do you think of this song? He goes, we should shoot a music video. I'm like,
yeah, right.
I was like, Federico wants to be on saxophone. Everyone's just like laughing. They're like, we have to make this happen. So that's why I contacted
created something really special, right? And I remember you saying, you're okay if we use your bar downstairs, da-da-da. And I'm like, yeah, sure. And I just remember walking in and there's a fucking smoke everywhere. There's like fake cigarettes. There's like a gun. There's like all this sort of shit. And I'm like, okay, you guys are good. I'm out of here, you know?
Yeah, we were cranking that smoke machine. And I think it's good because the more, you know, I think we're going to also like, you know, thankfully with the splits of the royalties, the more plays it gets, it's probably just like adding to promoting your venue.
Yeah.
And the more plays it gets, like the more, you know, little pennies that we can collect as artists who have made it on the back end for royalties as well as yourself. And then I think that would just be a beautiful thing, just to, like, have that going. It's going to be also conceptually beautiful. It's like very 1960s Mad Men.
Yeah.
And like, you know, the boys are like smoking heavily in a bar, which, you know, we just use a fog machine. And then the girls are like, you know, in like their petticoats, like making martinis in their house. That's retro. And then we go and we murder someone. It's actually it's such a happy song.
It's a love story.
We meet up. He's in a jazz bar singing. You know, there's like Woodrow. It's just like me and Woodrow, like looking very like 1960s. And
it's so cool.
We got like this van that was like a beautiful. Randomly, this woman just like popped up in front of my house, and I go, "Can I use your van for the shoot?" It's a 1967 Ford, and it has these doors that open up on the side.
Yep.
I was like,
"That's a band car. You know, you want to do a road trip at some point, right?"
Yeah.
I don't know what I could do. I could play the triangle or something. It'd be fucking weird. Or I could just start the bar. You know, I basically have the worst voice in the world. If I sung, it sounds like cats fucking. So.
Oh, I could probably make you sound good.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Digital. So we also, we can't say for what, but we also, this is what I love about our friendship with all these people, is that we have a little secret project, right? We're gonna shoot a crazy music video for something we can't talk about yet because I'll jinx it because we haven't done the deal. But it's pretty nutty, and we're probably gonna. The more we talk about it, the more scared I get because I realise between the choreography, the dance, the music, the acting, the costumes, the lighting, and all the other things that are involved. I mean, I'm gonna need Spielberg's budget.
Yeah, it's daunting at first, but I don't know. Like, I'll help produce and make it easy. I'll just take it one day at a time. It's daunting if you think about it. You just have to do it. It'll be fine.
Like, because you've got so many hours in a day, you're just fluffing around. You're already working. Like, I think you worked in the bar last night till late, then stayed in the studio. What time did you leave the studio this morning? Or did you sleep on the couch?
No, I luckily just went home. But yeah, there has been many nights where it's been, because now I have like it's a music production company, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm getting sometimes back a few months ago, like 8 months ago or 9 months ago, when it was like heavy, or even in the winter, special holiday season, it'd be brutal because like sometimes I'd be opening a bar, then closing a bar, and then like as it's like heavy hours, I would see a text just in the corner of the phone. It's like someone from LA is like, "Hey, can you get this track to us in 6 hours?" And I'm like, "My shift ends in 2." And then I have to run to the studio after working 15 brutal hours, and then try to like crank out something and get it to them before they wake up in LA.
But that's the thing I watched about you. Like, I'm an early riser, so I'll get up even if I go to bed late because of you. But it's like how I blush all my drinking problems and late night problems onto you.
It's all my fault.
Not my fault.
It's all my fault.
But I'll get up at 6 o'clock and I'll go for a run and I'll be by the water, and at 6:30, 7 o'clock, and I'll see an Instagram story and I'll see you with taking a picture of the sun coming up outside your window. How often do you sleep in your studio? A lot, right?
A lot, yeah. And this fur coat has done me wonders. It's so warm, and I'll just like pull the couch cushions off.
She's got if you're not watching this, she's got an enormous pink coat. It's not real fur, so nothing dyed.
It's teddy bear.
There's a lot of naked sheep out there, though. I like a lot.
Yeah, so yeah, it's definitely faux fur. It's like a teddy bear. But yeah, I drape this on top of myself in the sound booth, huddled on top of like couch cushions I pulled off. And right now my air conditioning's broken, so it's a brutal 62 degrees in there. It won't shut off.
Great.
And so it's like really freezing. So last time I couldn't get like more than an hour of sleep in there because it was so cold.
And then you're back into it the next
day.
And
because I couldn't leave the studio because I had to wake up and like just like wait for emails and then just like do it. It didn't make sense to come back.
You don't really sleep anyway. But your tenacity, which I talked about at the beginning, it was kind of interesting. We had this conversation one day where somebody said, "Have you been away?" And I said, "Oh, just for the day." And then the same with you. I think just the start of COVID, you'd said, "I'm going to go to Miami," and you went there for like 2 days, right? And came back and then haven't stopped since. And it was kind of interesting was when somebody said, oh, you're so lucky that you can feel that way. And I went, and they were talking about the positivity through this period. And I'm like, look, I got a restaurant hemorrhaging money that's shut and put all these staff out of furlough. There's nothing for me to jump up and down about, but I'm also out of control of that situation. So the stoicism kicks in for that reason.
Yeah.
But what's interesting about you and I, and a lot of our friends is, a lot of people would say you're lucky. And I'm like, well, I know you're at the beach and you should have a break, and I get all that, but I'm fucking hustling like you're hustling, right, through this process. So when things do go back to normal and everybody starts to shit the bed and go, I've got to do this and I've got to start that and I want to do this. You've been doing it the whole way through.
I try not to drown in like a circular drain of negative thinking like ever. So I was, like how you brought up Miami. I was in Miami when everything shut down in New York. Like I was in Miami with my friends and a beautiful condo right on the beach. And I get a call from both my bosses separately, and they're like, we're so sorry, we're going to have to like let you go, but it's only because we're all shutting down and we're going to strip the bars. And my other, boss, she was like crying on the phone, and I was just like, it's going to be okay.
You didn't stay long in Miami at all. It was like a few days.
Like 3 days, maybe.
Did you go to any bars?
Yes, I was down there, and I actually thought, I was like, maybe if New York bars are shutting down, they're not shutting down here, I should just get a job and live in an Airbnb and just bartend here. I'll just hustle. But they're like, no, we're shutting down the next day, too. I'm like, oh, crap, I can't just like miss
What are the
my flight
bars
tomorrow.
like there? Is there a big difference between there and here?
It depends. There's like a lot of the clubs are a lot more spacey with like open air situation and stuff like that. And then there's like South Beach, which someone got shot like 2 hours before we arrived. It's just crazy and ratchet. I mean,
a little bit of entertainment, but no ticket price.
Yeah, it's just weird. Like there's like dancing and stuff like I don't know. Like it's just
it's a different scene.
Yeah,
right?
it just depends on what area of Miami I guess you're in and stuff like that. And I was just there just to really just not think about anything. And then that happened. I was like, well, I guess I'm just gonna come home and not think about anything and try to figure out.
Well, you did think about everything. You just hustled the whole way through.
Yeah.
Right? I don't think you've had a break since then, right?
No, yeah, and it was interesting how I had to adapt because the studio was also shutting down. Now I didn't feel safe to go in there, and I had to pull some of the gear out and then work at my very not soundproofed apartment in Brooklyn. So like it was really difficult to record, which is why I ended up going to Woodrow's in the Cowfields, and then just like, but yeah, I would then also try to do some bartending mixology stuff. I just watched way too much Chef's Table, and then thought, like maybe I can like apply this food method into my cocktails.
We're going to get to your weird food thing in a second because I got some details on you from your roommate while you weren't watching. That she was very open to giving me everything. But I want to ask you a question for people that want to start out in the music industry.
Yeah.
I mean, clearly, if they haven't listened to this podcast properly, then hustling doesn't make sense to them. But you essentially did that. But what would you give your advice to somebody that wants to, jump into the music industry, loves music, outside the fact that they just love listening to it, but they really want to hustle?
Yeah, it's a lot of discipline, and you've got to really be hungry to learn how to do something yourself. There's so many plethora of information where you can do it yourself, learn technology yourself. You can go the route of like paying an engineer to do it, but you can also learn how to record yourself. That's important. And also, like, it's interesting to me when people want to go into music and I don't know what their intent is, and I think it's very important to know if you're in music and you really love it, there's no such thing as quitting.
Sure.
Because you're doing it because it's part of you and it's a life, not like a lot of people who...
Not like me when I was 13 and I learned how to play Back to the Future on the piano and thought, I can be a musician. And at 14, I was like, no, this is not for me.
Yeah, I mean, like, you just have to just do it. I don't know. Like, it's hard to describe. Like, for me, like, I've had friends who go, I'm quitting the music industry. I'm like, I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
Because to me, I'm just going to go and make music and then just see if it lands somewhere. Like, I just kind of flail about.
But that's also why you're successful, because your driver isn't money.
No,
your driver
or fame. I think that's what it is. They're in it for the fame reason or something. And I'm like, you can't think about it that way. You are doing music. That's just what you.
But I think most of the great successful artists in the world have always thought that way. And I think, so give me a handful of names right now that you think are really exciting. People that are up and coming. We know all the big names, but who's cool right now and that you think you love, you think's got potential? And I know you're not the god on all music, but you have your opinions.
Yeah.
Tell me who's exciting right now for you.
I'm drawing a blank right now.
No,
there's a band I've been obsessed with called They. They're in California. I don't know them, but I can't stop listening to them. It's just called. they're called They.
Yeah.
And that's the only one I can really recommend. Other than it's like a plethora of people like Woodrow and what he's working on.
Yep.
He now goes by Architect, and he's working on a bunch of things with people from the brewery recording studios as well, in conjunction with, I guess, me. I'm part of Engine Room Audio, I guess. And, Joe Daniel's been working on it. I think he was a Grammy-nominated artist named
Right.
Ro James. It's a lot of trap R&B that I've been listening to, so I don't know if it's
Really?
going to be your
Interesting.
people's cup of tea, but, like, that's the direction also, like, my team wants me to go forward on for, like, my stuff, because they want to release me as a product is what they call it,
Sure.
as an artist. As well as me doing odd-ended jingles for people, and then for fun, shooting music videos. I don't know. My team is once we release that music video.
Yeah. They probably want them to do another one.
Well, they might.
Might need a fresh team for our little project.
They might get upset because it's not on brand with what I do at all.
Right.
But I'm like, this is great. This is also really funny.
But you also, you always come off to me as somebody that just is like, fuck it, let's try it.
Yeah.
And because you don't want to look back and go, especially during this pandemic, who wants to look back and say they cried themselves to sleep every night and ate pizza in the shower at the end of it? Like at some point, you just got to get up, dust yourself off, and have a crack.
Yeah, I don't know why I don't really
Not have crack, have a crack.
Yeah, have a crack. Yeah, have a crack at it. Right. I don't know. I just wake up and do it, and other people, I guess, like, I don't know. I'm a high functioning anxiety type of person where I'm just like, I'm going to use like any energy I have that's nervous and just like kind of use it to be
and wear it out. Basically, you treat your anxiety like Seabiscuit.
I mean, I did do a lot of neurolinguistic programming for therapy like several years back when I was in like, and I was miserable in a day job and I didn't know what to do with that energy, and now I can like figure out how to harness it. Yeah. And
or try to anyway.
Yeah, well, there are many nights where I'm an insomniac. I think that's also part of the reason why I can't sleep, even if I try to go to bed early sometimes, because I'm just thinking about so much, and getting excited about like things I'm working on. I've never been happier to switch out of an industry that I didn't like and then fall in love with two
Then it's not work anymore, right? So that's why you can still leave Barbelly, say, at 2 o'clock in the morning and go to your recording studio, where most people wouldn't be sitting in a recording studio on their own at that night time because, like you said, when people are getting in to be famous, they want everything to be everything to be about that. And they don't see the grind that goes on behind it.
Yeah.
It's that famous picture of the iceberg and it's small on the top and it's huge on the bottom.
Right.
You never really know what's underneath it.
Yeah, it's literally just formed into pure passion where I would make a song, get so excited. It's not even for me. It's like, it's for you, that song.
Sure.
But we're just like, me and Wood are just bopping around on the walking bass line and just getting really giggling and just getting excited about our work. And same thing with the hospitality. We're just like going over cocktails and just watching everyone work so hard and just like be proud of the team and be proud of like the engineers working on music. Cocktails, it all became kind of synonymous for
and
this
it's
passion.
science, right? Like there's some science behind it because you're a science nerd. We've got a couple of I've got some things here I found out, but let me ask you on the bar side, you've got to have some favourites. Can't say my bar because that would be biased and you'd probably be lying. But tell me a couple of bars that you would go to if you weren't working, which is rarely. What are the hottest bars for you, like, pre-COVID?
Oh, man. You know what's crazy? Because I work so much, I don't really go to bars a lot. It's the same question as you asking me, like, what artists do you recommend? I'm like, I've been living under a rock because I'm making music rather than listening to music. I have to literally set aside. So also bar and going out to do it. Recently, I really like this bar. It's called Pineapple Club, and Buddha Bar TV's shooting a documentary on them currently. They just got their liquor license as soon as the city shut down.
Where are they?
They're in the East Village area, like kind of
Pineapple Club.
Pineapple Club.
Okay.
That place is great. Man, that place shut down. There's a bunch of places that shut down that I can't really name anymore. I feel like it's not right. I mean, Peaches is a great bar.
Yep.
I went
Peaches.
Peaches is great. Yep. I went to Mr. Paradise. A friend of mine works there.
Yep.
I try to go to other cocktail bars to kind of also study the flavor profiles that they might be working on.
Sure.
I'm just curious to see what they're doing. And then at the end of it, like, I might just go, I just want a whiskey on the rocks. But.
Yeah, but you're trying to be simple like me. But just to be clear on your drinking habits, you drink simply, but you think complex mixes. And I remember one day you arrived at work and you had a bag with cured egg yolks in it, and you've got all kinds of weird little hobbies going on top of dealing with all the career stuff.
That egg yolk thing is a good story, actually. So I was doing pop-ups with Stephen Lewis at Barbelly, like bi-monthly for a while before we got shut down, and
pop-ups around the city, or
just at Barbelly.
Oh, okay, cool.
It's just like a special day,
Sure.
6 cocktails. It's only for that day, and then boom, it's gone. We never make it again. It doesn't exist. which was amazing, like to just be creative and just come up with stuff. So there's oleosaccharum, which is when you take a bunch of the leftover peels that we have, the twists of lemons and oranges, and we throw it in a sugar bag, and it dissolves into the oils of the rind,
Right.
and creates oil
Yep,
sugar,
yep.
oleosaccharum, very sweet stuff. So we would take that and then rinse it off with the juices of these oranges, and then because we never used orange juice for some weird reason, I was like, we should use
Of course
that
you don't. Why would you
for
do
the
that?
cocktail, like make a blood and sand or something. So we made a riff off of that, and that was beautiful. And then he goes, now that's so sustainable because it's zero waste. What if we could do something about these egg yolks we keep tossing out after making egg white shaken, like a pisco sour or something like that for these sours? He goes, if we could just save 24 egg yolks that we throw out a week.
So not a red eye,
genius.
not a red eye because that's a bit gross now, right? No Bloody Mary with a yolk.
That
in
would
it.
be. I don't think anyone would want that. Yeah, I was just like, what do I do?
Well, a drunk Australian would. Like my business partner Jason at 1 o'clock in the morning probably do one of those. But that's about it.
I'll try that maybe
Don't
if I was
think you-
wasted.
Yeah, I don't think you'll get through 50 yolks a week though.
Yeah, no, we go through a lot in that cocktail bar. It's so
Right.
busy. And then during quarantine, I was watching a lot of Chef's Table, and then in the middle of the night, in an insomnia-driven night, I had that eureka moment. I was like, I could cure that egg yolk and shave it like they do in those Michelin-star restaurants and put it on top of a cocktail. Who does that? Nobody's done this as a
Who does that?
garnish.
Who does that?
On
You do
top
that.
of
So what did you do
egg
with
white, egg yolk. So I ran down the next day in maybe getting 3 hours of sleep because I couldn't sleep. I was so excited. Ran down the stairs, also just in my underwear, hair crazy. My roommate's just like her mouth was to the floor. I was like, Rachel, yeah, I had this idea last night. She was just like, she couldn't stop laughing because I looked so crazy running out of bed. And then I was like, I'm
here to cure egg yolks.
Yeah, and I cured egg yolks, and then I brought it in, and I was like, we should try this when things are again full force for COVID.
Sure.
So we'll see. But
What's it going to go on? Tell me. I can't imagine what to put that on.
Just like any of the egg white drinks, because we did
Of course.
stuff with egg white powder.
Like whiskey sour. Or...
Yeah, because we just have a carton of egg, and then you take the yolk and maybe throw it into a cube mold with salt sugar mixture, and then bear it with a little bit more.
Of course, that's what I would do. Absolutely. I'm at home curing egg yolks on my fucking days off, putting them in square molds.
Yeah, and then cure it, and then shave it, and it tastes just like Parmesan cheese.
Yeah.
And if that grosses people out, well then fine. It's sustainable. So that was the only reason
That's
why I
right.
wanted
And you were recycling. You weren't throwing
waste.
things out.
Yeah.
So you're a bit of a science nerd. We clearly know that. You're smoking meat. You're doing all kinds of weird stuff.
Yes.
A couple things Rachel said. So apparently your alarm goes off and off and off and off. And you have to have it. How many times? She says it has to be reset 5 or 6 times.
I mean, I just like to hit the snooze button. I don't know how to unhack that bad habit at this point. But yeah, it'll just go off, and I'll just kind of let it ring. And I just have trouble waking up, especially being an insomniac, and it's just, that's just part of it. And if I don't have more than 3 alarms, let's say I just have one, I might oversleep after just hitting.
So the other one she said, which we've seen pictures of. You've got a pet. I mean, apparently she's got a lizard, right?
Oh yeah.
She's got a weird lizard and something else.
A leopard gecko. We have 2 of them and a snake.
Of course you do.
Yeah.
And they're not food. Just to be clear, if anybody's listening, they're not being cured or anything yet. Not yet, anyway. And then you've got a pet mantis that you've just found the other day that I've noticed you've been feeding online in the garden.
Yeah, her name's Nancy.
Yeah, of course.
And she's a bad influence. No, just kidding. She's great. She was injured, so she can't use a couple of her limbs, and so I was being very protective. So a friend was leaving our apartment visiting another roommate, Caleb, and he noticed the bug and it was just on a fence and it seemed like it wasn't in good shape. So I picked her up and then for the past month put her in the garden in the back on our tomato plants. And then, kind of concerned. She can't hunt, so we have mealworms for the lizard, so I was feeding it and then just having conversations with Nancy.
So you've basically created a mantis restaurant.
Yes. Well, now I brought her inside, so she has a little terrarium, and I feed her inside because it's too cold. It's 49 degrees overnight now. And
who said mantises don't like cold? How did you know this?
Extensive research on the internet, I guess.
You're just a hospitality person through and through.
I love that bug more than people at this point. If that bug passes away, I'll be so sad. It's such a weird
there's a few more weird things. We won't bring them up that Rachel told me that might embarrass you
I'm
online.
weird. Yes, it's fine.
No, that's all right. You're weird and very talented. I've got one last question for you. It's been a delight to have you on.
Sure.
What would you tell your 20-year-old self right now?
Oh my gosh. I've never become more confident growing into a woman compared to 10 years ago even, especially just being in 2 male-dominated industries,
right,
such as the music industry and the hospitality industry, being surrounded by that makes you become hopefully if I met her, like, let's say a 10 years ago, me and me now, she wouldn't be so shook up to see how I've changed in hopefully good ways. But it is, I would say it's a drastic transformation. I was way more polite being from the Midwest. I still to this day apologize too much.
You're super polite. You do apologize too much.
That's when New Yorkers
Well,
hate
sorry,
it.
sorry, your drink only took 3 minutes.
So sorry.
Sorry.
Everyone's like, stop saying sorry. But no, that's a good thing to have, is to be polite. Like, you keep doing what you're doing, but also like work. Yeah, just do it. Like, I was terrified to make that transformation from what is essentially a 9 to 5 to 2 different industries that I had no idea what I was doing in, and I've never been happier since. Like, I have no regrets for that.
And you love this city.
Yeah.
What does it take? How many years you got to live here to you become an official New Yorker? Is it a decade?
They say a decade, but you know what?
Shit,
You can't take the Michigan out of me.
Yeah, you can't take the Michigan out of you. I can absolutely see that.
I get when I get mad too. Like, people see like
when I've seen you throw people out, I'm like, she's not from here.
I'm definitely not from here.
Yeah. We'll just get the Michigan bar staff to come out and throw you out of the restaurant. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. Thanks so much for being on the show and putting up with all my bullshit. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
Take care.
Thanks.
That's it for this week, peeps. If you're enjoying the show, just go to iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or whatever podcast player you listen to, and ideally give us a 5-star rating if we deserve it, of course, and a review, as it helps other people like you discover us. If you want to find out more on what we get up to or suggest someone that we should interview, let us know. Follow us on Instagram at Raw Hospitality Show. The show is a Fabrica Collective production and produced by Mark Fellows and Elaine Castillo-Geller.